It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Planet podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly, editor-in-chief of dailyplanetfilms.com, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and co-editor, Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going this week?
I'm doing great, Scott. I'm mildly trepidatious to talk with you today about our topic, which is Forrest Gump.
Yeah, so a couple podcasts ago, I think it was on the Oscar podcast, we randomly got into Forrest Gump and I started whining about it. And it gave me an idea to have a whole podcast about me trying to convince you that Forrest Gump is a terrible movie.
And this should be good because I like Forrest Gump. It moves me where it's supposed to, and I like Tom Hanks, and so you get your work cut out for you.
Well, we will see. We will discuss at the end whether you still love Forrest Gump as much.
Okay.
But before we do that, we have some movie news to get into. Quite a few things happened over this last week. I think we're getting ramped up for summer movie time, and there's a lot of other news coming out about upcoming movies. So I just wanted to run through some stuff real quick and get your opinion on it. Some of it sounds good, some of it sounds weird. The first one, did you see the 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street movies?
I haven't seen either of those. Were they funny?
They're really funny, actually.
Okay.
It's Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the same guys who did the Lego movie.
Okay.
They're like kind of meta and aware that, like, the first one's very much aware that it's a reboot, and the second one's very much aware that it's a comedy sequel and kind of making fun of that trope.
Okay.
So there was a rumor, I think it was after 22 Jump Street came out a year ago, that these two characters were gonna do like a cross-universe thing into Men in Black. So I guess like be agents in Men in Black, and be a comedy with that. It was just a rumor. I don't think it was ever really substantiated until last week, where that's actually going to be a thing.
That's very. I mean, it could actually be pretty funny because Men in Black is potentially pretty funny. I don't know. Some of the movies are better than others, and you're telling me this is a funny franchise. So as long as it has exactly the right degree of not taking itself seriously while still having an engaging story, could be good. It's a weird choice to mix a sci-fi franchise with what is it, a cop thing? I don't even know what.
Yeah, it's like a buddy cop. Like the first one, they dress up as high schoolers and try to bust up a drug ring in a high school.
Okay.
But so I thought it was kind of weird at first too, and then the more I thought about it, the more it kind of fits. I think Men in Black was a sci-fi movie, but it was also kind of a buddy cop comedy.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
And that's exactly what this is. So I don't know. I don't know if Phil and Chris are still involved in it. I hope so, because if not, that would make me nervous. But I'm interested to see what happens. The funny thing is, the end of 22 Jump Street, like, basically tried to eliminate there ever being any more sequels, because the ending credits is just like 23 Jump Street all the way up to like 40 Jump Street of just like them going to different kind of schools in each one. Like the first movie is them in high school, the second movie is them in college, and then they go to like cooking college, and like it just gets increasingly more ridiculous, which is a perfect way of kind of like closing the movie from ever having sequels.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do it this way, I guess that's fine. You'll have to watch those movies. I think we could have a whole podcast about those two movies because they're surprisingly good.
Yeah, honestly, they didn't look that good from the trailers, which I'm beginning to learn trailers are not reliable. So
yes. Okay, so the next item I had was Venom. We talked a little bit about Venom on our non-Marvel podcast. I don't really like the character, but Sony still owns the rights to him, and they still want to make a movie about him.
He's a everybody who knows comics knows Venom, so got to make a Venom movie.
So here's the thing, though. Venom to me is like a foil of Peter Parker, right? Like he's Spider-Man. It's foil. So this standalone Venom movie will not have anything to do with any iteration of Spider-Man ever. He won't be in it.
Yeah.
So this is just then a guy in a black symbiote suit. Like I just don't understand why anyone would want to see this movie or care.
I mean, they're probably gonna. I don't know. I'm guessing they're gonna go this sci-fi angle because the symbiote is an alien. So maybe they'll play it more of a horror thing where it's like the Venom symbiote is almost treated as like the thing that's possessing people, and they have to. I mean, you can make it. The question is, are they going to use the same story elements that were in the Spider-Man story, or are they going to just take this idea of the symbiote that turns you into a? I mean, fundamentally, it's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, but
yeah,
that's extremely common in superhero fiction anyway. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what. Again, I'm just going to have to give the answer that I've now given so many times, which is like, yeah, it could work in the right hands.
Well, that's the other thing is the hands that are involved in this one are the same ones that did Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So,
great. So no.
Yeah. I have very little faith in this. I think it's a bad idea, but we'll see. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is Star Wars, because we don't talk about Star Wars enough anymore.
No.
So you know that there's a standalone movie coming out this year, Rogue One, I think it's called. And they're also doing another standalone movie that'll come out the year after Episode 8, and that's going to be a young Han Solo movie. And the news that broke this week was that Chewbacca will be in it, and it will deal with Chewbacca's origin story, or at least the origin of their friendship. So this all sounds really bad to me. But we talked about Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are the 21 Jump Street guys. They're involved in this movie, and that kind of gives me a little faith in it. I think they're really talented writers and directors, so I feel like they'll find an in creative, inventive way of not just making it like the opening of the third Indiana Jones movie, where like we show him get his hat and no, like the least necessary thing ever. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm going back and forth in my head. It's probably going to be pandering and fan servicey. And I mean, obviously, right? If like it's intentionally pandering and fan servicey because it's a Han Solo backstory, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like 15 Star Wars novels that already cover that exact territory, because everyone knows that everyone wants to know more about Han Solo, because we want to know more about the mysterious rogues who we shouldn't actually know more about because it ruins their character. Yeah, I'm not, I don't know, probably not going to be too good. And also it's going to be weird when every movie that Harrison Ford was in is remade with some young actor, which is basically what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the best thing they can do is kind of turn into the fact that they're playing off people's emotions, and it's basically an exploitation type movie. And if anyone's able to do that, I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller are. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I don't care how they became friends. Like I'm imagining a scene where like Han Solo first gets that vest. They're gonna show that. I'm sure like Greedo will be in it or something.
I hope they give an alternate explanation for how Harrison Ford got the scar on his chin, like how in the Indiana Jones movie he got it with a whip, using it against a lion. Maybe this one he'll be using a blaster and he'll shoot himself in the face.
Or the
Got to
backfires.
cover all these things, or how are you going to know?
Because
get
that
answers.
matters so much.
Because that's what I've been asking myself ever since I was a kid.
Okay, so moving on. So Matt, there's gonna be a Where's Waldo movie. You're familiar with the Where's Waldo books, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we in fact we were just looking at those with my kids.
So how do you make a movie out of this?
I'm trying to think. Wasn't there something else though recently, or maybe not so recently, where everyone was saying this is the stupidest thing ever? How are they going to make a movie out of this? And then it turned out to be amazing. I remember having that exact train of thought, but now I can't remember what the movie was actually. I mean, I guess the Lego movie, but
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there was something else. But the point being, they're basically just saying like, okay, we have this property. Now find someone to write a really great script that in some way, it doesn't matter how tangentially ties into this property. And as long as the script is good, we're going to make it. And I almost feel like the odds of the movie being good increase as the property they're exploiting becomes less relevant.
Yeah, well, and it's Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg who are the same pair that's done basically any Seth Rogen movie you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
They did last year's the Christmas movie one that I'm blanking on now. They did
Into the World one.
Yeah,
right?
They did the North Korea one that got everyone in a bunch of trouble. So, I mean, I think is Waldo just going to be like a stoner? Like I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. But I think it'll be interesting to see where they take it. I think they could have a lot of fun with it and make a funny kind of weird movie that I wouldn't have even thought of.
Yeah, I mentioned the Tim Ferriss podcast on one of our last recommendation sessions, and he interviews the two of them. Actually, it's a pretty good interview if you're interested in kind of their process and where they come from.
Yeah, I definitely am. They're smart guys. I'd be interested in hearing that. Cool. Well, so the last news item we had is Game of Thrones related, because we all love Game of Thrones at the Daily Planet, and we're going to cover every single thing we did. So, Matt, you already wrote a coverage of this trailer, but what did you think of it overall?
I guess I liked it as a trailer. I mean, there were since I went through it with the fine-tooth comb, I noticed that a lot of the images were just like, oh, it's Jorah, and then it would move on. So like you couldn't, you had really almost no idea of what was going on, or sort of generic fighting scenes where you can't really tell what's going on. I guess maybe if you really went in detail and looked at people's like military uniforms, you could figure out who was fighting who. But regardless, they do seem to be drawing our attention to Jon Snow's dead body a lot. We got more shots of Jon Snow's dead body than we got of any other character. And
he's totally dead.
He's totally dead though, and not gonna come back in any way. What did you think about this trailer?
I liked it a lot. I'm kind of sick. Like, I feel like we do this with everything now, and I know Game of Thrones did it in previous seasons, but like, they take a song and then cut a slower paced version of the same song, to play over these trailers. And I feel like every movie or TV show is doing it now, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. But it's exciting to see footage that we don't know what it's for. Like, every other trailer for these seasons in the past, I've like known, oh, that's this scene and that's this scene, but we don't know anything. So like, I'm actually paying attention to this thing, trying to figure out what I think is going on, which is exciting. Like, I think this season's gonna be really fun. I'm kind of almost glad that the book didn't come out before it, because then I'd be dealing with all the book purists that go crazy and can't see them as two separate pieces of art. But no, I thought it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, I think I almost prefer it this way too. Even though I've been waiting for the book forever, I want to see what the show guys do when left to their own, devices with no firm script to go off of. Because I mean, I guess that's the thing, is this will be the real test of whether they can hold this show together without relying on the source material entirely. Yeah. And I'm not 100% confident that they can, but I'd say I'm more than 50% confident that they can. So
we'll see. It's exciting.
Yeah.
When do you think we're gonna get that book? Ever? This year?
Honestly, like, I don't even think we're gonna see it this year. I think, yeah, I don't.
I don't know if he's just lost motivation to write or is just so like nervous about expectations or whatever, but like that when he wrote that note about how he missed his like they gave him 2 chances to get the book out before the show and he missed both deadlines, like huge. Like I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I think he definitely has lost the motivation to write this story. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a professional writer, so I don't know how real professional writers work. But I know with me, like I either have the things kind of living in my head and I have to write it, almost like a compulsion, or it's an artificial thing that I have to sort of like cajole myself into writing, and then it never comes out that well anyway because I don't really feel inspired. And one must assume that a professional career writer like him has some tricks for making himself write when he doesn't want to write. But maybe he's just old and doesn't care anymore. Doesn't care about like.
Well, it's gotten so big too that like every word he writes, he has to have someone checking to make sure he's not contradicting something else, and it's just so big and unwieldy, and like he's almost like, especially with the show and the popularity of it, he has an out now. Like the story is going to get told one way or the other, so he doesn't have to finish it.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. I hope he does.
Yeah, me too.
Even though I didn't like the last 2 books near as much as the first 3, I still enjoyed them, and I want to see how he ends it. I think it's cool that we're going to get to see 2 different versions of the end of the story. I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
We'll find out April 24th, something like that.
They keep pushing it back.
Yeah, it used to be beginning of April.
I know.
Well, it's a very expensive show to produce, so we'll give them a few extra weeks.
Okay, I'll allow it.
All right, so let's move on to our main event, Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump sucks, first of all.
And
so
the counterposition, Forrest Gump is pretty good.
So here's the thing I want to say. So Forrest Gump came out in 1994, I think it was. I think it got nominated for 5 or 6 Oscars. It won Best Picture. I think it won Actor for Hanks. I'm not sure if Robert Zemeckis got a directing nomination or I think he got nominated. I'm not sure if he won. But so it's a very well regarded movie. It's a very well liked movie. I think it's on IMDb's top 250 movies list. I think it's like in the top 50 or something, which by the way is a terrible list and is in no way accurate. Right now Deadpool is apparently the 67th best movie ever.
Wow.
So I think it's a skewed list, but that just goes to show that people kind of love Forrest Gump. I was one of those people the first time I saw it because I was a little kid, and it's a funny movie that's kind of heartwarming. But here's my counter argument to that. I don't think it is heartwarming at all. I think it's a movie that hates people. I think it's a movie that hates all kinds of people. And I think Robert Zemeckis is doing this very intentionally. I don't think he likes people.
So you think this is a cynical, like mean-spirited?
Well, I think it starts off as kind of satire, but it starts taking itself seriously at the end. I mean, the movie starts off with us being told Forrest's name is based off of a KKK guy, one of the founding members of the Ku Klux Klan. That's what his name Forrest is based off of, and it kind of drops that in, and then it's like he says that his mom told him that just so he could always know that sometimes people do weird stuff that doesn't make any sense, and that's like it's played off as a joke, and a lot of the movies played off as a joke. There's like his mom sleeps with the principal to allow him to go to school, and that's really played off very casually, like so much so that when the guy leaves the house after sleeping with his mom, Forrest makes fun of the way he sounds while having sex, like a 9-year-old Forrest Gump. Like it's just it's weird, and it's I don't think it's taking itself seriously at all. And then it kind of morphs into this other thing. So I think the reason people like this movie, and especially the reason baby boomers like this movie, is because it kind of is a chronicle of America growing up from the 50s through, I think it's in the 80s. I think what it goes to, and Forrest lives in and experiences these different moments in life, and I think people like seeing those things. But it also shows how everything in our culture is stupid, and how trying at all in life is stupid. And the only one that really has success in life is Forrest Gump, who doesn't really want anything. He's too kind of mentally handicapped to realize what's going on, and he just kind of bumbles his way through life and is constantly rewarded for it. And that's what's really frustrating to me about this movie.
Interesting. Okay. I'm trying to formulate a rebuttal or a response of any kind. So yeah, I mean, I definitely feel you on like the awkward, uncomfortable humor, which is pervasive, and it's almost like a blend. There's a continuous blend between awkward, uncomfortable humor and just awkward, uncomfortable. Period. Like all the sexual stuff between him and Jenny is clearly not supposed to be funny. It's like very, I don't know. I've never watched it and not been just like, this is weird and feels wrong in various ways. And then yeah, like you just pointed out, there's a lot of like humor at his expense as a mentally handicapped person. But I mean, the movie's doing this on purpose, though. Like this is the way that it's choosing to convey its message.
Yeah, but,
so it's not like it's an accidental.
Is its message? So yeah, I guess I should back up. I don't think this is a badly made movie. I think it's actually a very well made movie. I think Robert Zemeckis knew exactly what he was doing with this movie, and I think he succeeds in like feeding this crap to people that they eat up while it's making fun of them the entire time. So I think like the craft of the movie, I'm not insulting that at all. I just hate the message of this movie. Or what I perceive as the message of it. And I don't understand how people don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, so let me think. I guess I should have thought before this conversation about what the message of the movie actually was. What is your interpretation of the message in a succinct fashion, so that I may decide if I agree?
I think it's Robert Zemeckis looking at the audience and saying, "You're all stupid." Forrest Gump, like every big cultural moment in the world in the past 50 years or so, Forrest Gump was involved in, and it was mostly accidental. Like Elvis Presley's dance was taken from Forrest. The stupid shit happens bumper sticker, the smiley face T-shirt. They even say that John Lennon's song Imagine was inspired by stuff Forrest Gump said. So it's like every cultural icon or significant cultural event in our culture was created by a mentally handicapped guy who wasn't even aware he was doing it. So it's America, your culture is stupid. It's also kind of, I mean, I'll get into that later, but that's what I think is America is stupid, and to succeed in America, you have to be stupid.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with that in certain regards, but I would use different words that made it sound less bad. It's like this is all dumb stuff. Like if you go through the story, all of the culture, all the cultural things that he's involved with are random and dumb, and it's like maybe the lesson is like, well, history is dumb. History is like a dumb, random process, and it's actually a bit conceited to say that history is like planned or that anyone is in charge. it's really just individuals bumping around randomly doing things. And I mean, you could I'm gonna steel man the position of like it wasn't Forrest Gump who inspired John Lennon to write those lyrics, because Forrest Gump is fictional, but probably something equally dumb inspired John Lennon to make those lyrics. And probably something like, yeah, because Forrest Gump is just a stand-in for like
For
almost
America. Forrest Gump is America.
he is basically, because he's a fictional character, but the real, I don't know, I'm probably mixing too many things here, but like the real character of the story is the history of America through this period of time. And Forrest Gump is almost just like a sounding board to.
Yeah, but isn't it crazy that this is a movie that chooses to tell some of the most important events in America's history through the lens of a person who doesn't even fully comprehend what's going on? I mean, that's to me like an indictment of our entire culture and us as people.
It may be an indictment, but I guess that's a good question. Is it an intentional indictment? Because like especially certain parts, like where he goes to Vietnam or whatever, it's like, well, weren't we as a nation walking into that blindly, just as Forrest Gump was? And weren't we as a nation like traumatized just as he was, and everything that went on? I don't know, I guess he wasn't really traumatized, but
no, he wasn't, because he's completely indifferent to everything. Because he doesn't.
Well, his friend died, and that was a metaphor for all the men that we lost as a nation.
Right, and then he steals his friend's dream and becomes a millionaire.
Right, which is we stole the futures of a generation of young men. And
but it's just I don't like. I see what you're saying, and I think it's all very intentional. And it's just like this movie, it just seems to hate everything. Like the war stuff specifically. This is a movie that actually was championed by the more conservative right. As a movie that like represents like hardworking Americanism. It also hates everything liberal. It hates the SDS. It hates Black Panther. Every liberal movement or liberal activity in this movie is destroyed and shamed. And like the Jenny dates a guy from the SDS, and of course he's a drug addict abuser who beats the shit out of her. But at the same time, it also makes fun of more conservative right-wing stuff, because it very specifically makes fun of the American military, in that Forrest Gump is super successful in the military because he's smart enough to follow orders but stupid enough to never question the orders. And there's a whole scene where the guy says, you're going to be a general someday because you're the smartest man I've ever seen in the military, which is definitely an indictment of our military.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to dislike everything.
And he gets through college.
Right, just
he gets a college degree by just like able to run pretty fast.
Yeah, he plays football, and he doesn't even know. Like, I don't know. It's just like everything at every turn, and then when he does his 3-year long running trek, and people just start kind of following him, and they have no idea why he's doing it. And they never learn why he's doing it. They're just blindly following him. That again is to me an indictment of Americans, and maybe that's more of a talk about religion or spiritual movements or what have you. But that's just, it's making fun of people, and I just like, people say this is a really warm-hearted movie, and I just don't know how they don't see it. I don't know. And I think the thing that most exemplifies that to me is the Jenny character. More than anything. Because, Jenny grows up with like a terrible childhood. She has a father that abuses her, but she's a character who has goals, who wants to do things. She tells Forrest, she wants to sing, she wants to be on the stage just with a guitar. She wants to reach people in a wide audience, but also on a personal level. And the movie destroys her. Like, she dies in the end of AIDS. Like, everything she tries, like, she fails and is like beaten up and destroyed by life. Whereas Forrest, who never really wanted anything. Well, he's not. He's just not aware enough. He's not intelligent enough to really know what he wants or to have goals or do any of the stuff. Like, has this hugely successful life, gets everything that anyone would ever want. It's just like that's just to me. I don't know. I don't know how you root for that.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, this isn't necessarily my perspective. I guess maybe it partly is, but just like Forrest is purely innocent, like, and regardless of whether you think he is, I think the movie is trying to tell you that he's like this pure, innocent,
I think he
childlike
is.
creature, and so that's I think the metaphysics of the movie is rewarding his childlike innocence, and it's like, and that is a little weird because I'm sure plenty of people with childlike innocence died in Vietnam, so the movie rewarded him by not only letting him survive, but giving him a successful life. And I think Jenny is I don't know, the movie. I'm gonna have to think about what the movie is trying to say with Jenny, because there's sort of a knee jerk um, reading where it's saying that she's like some kind of fallen woman and she deserves what she gets because she wasn't pure enough and rejected Forrest to go, um, be a be a druggie eventually, I guess. But whatever else she was doing, she wasn't just staying with Forrest. She should have just stayed with Forrest.
Yeah, she
And
should have
everything
just
would have been fine.
stayed in the South, in the heartland, and been with Forrest. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's yeah.
and so if the movie is saying that, then that is a bit icky, um, because
But see, I think it's saying. I don't know. I think Zemeckis is a really smart guy, and I think he's tailoring a movie, knowing people will have that reading to it. But I think there's more going on there. I think, and that's what frustrates me so much about this movie is that people don't see it, and they I'm telling you, this movie when it came out, like the whole conservative push against Clinton at the time, like adopted this movie as their like representative of their ideals. And even still, it's a very liked movie by the conservative side, and I think like it frustrates me that like it's making fun of you, like it's making fun of those people. But it's making fun of everyone, but it like it it starts off as satire, but it gets, I think it just gets really mean. I mean, I think like at every pass, like the parts where like when Forrest becomes a shrimp fisherman, and he is successful only because every other shrimp fisherman's boat got destroyed because he's too stupid to put his boat in during a hurricane, and so a bunch of other people's entire livelihood was destroyed, but Forrest gets to be a millionaire fisherman. And it's just like that's mean. Like it's like I don't know. It's just this movie is so hurtful to me. Like I watched it again last night, and I was just like, you hate everybody. This movie hates everybody.
yeah, it is a
Except
very
Forrest.
unique, like, morality play. Sort of reminds me of like the Brothers Grimm fairy tales or something, where there's absolutely no attempt to like make the moral palatable. The moral is just like listen to your parents or you'll be eaten. And this one is like keep your head down, do what people say, um, don't question things too deeply, or you know all your fishing boats will be smashed, by
get
AIDS.
AIDS.
Yeah, right. Right. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. You're actually making me see that the universe of the movie, in the sense that the universe of the movie is conservative in the sense that the universe punishes um um behavior that is not.
Not of the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It absolutely does. Um, man, I think back to every moment, like the like even Lieutenant Dan. We haven't talked about Lieutenant Dan. This is a guy that's kind of a stand-in for the Born on the 4th of July character, who just gets like systematically he becomes he's like miserable and alcoholic, and he eventually gets to a place where he's okay, but like it just punishes every character that's not Forrest. I mean, like we talked a little bit about his mother, like we never really got to see what his mother wanted. I mean, all she really wanted was Forrest to get an education, and she slept with a dude to make that happen. And the movie just treats that as a joke. It's just so weird. Like it's almost like it's kind of like Forrest Gump is a guy who people do everything for, but he's too unintelligent to notice or to be thankful for it. Which it actually kind of goes back to the book we talked about in our book club, because that's kind of a lot like what the Lotto character was.
Yeah.
Where people are just constantly doing stuff for him and helping him out, and he just goes over his head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the one hand, I think the movie is saying that you sort of have to find humor in tragedy. Maybe, I mean, that was, I don't know, if I sort of reach deep down and ask myself, like, what was I feeling? It's like you're simultaneously conscious of the problems, but you're also, the movie is pointing out to you, like, this, you can choose to view this as humorous. You can choose to view this as sad and tragic, or you can choose to view this as humorous. And we're going to give you this character who you were watching the movie through, who makes everything humorous because he sees it in a childlike way, and that forces you to, like, step away from your own mode of interpreting reality, basically, and reinterpret it in a more childlike way.
Yeah. I just don't know if that's good, and I don't know, like, I think a lot of the reason people like this movie so much, I think, is because Tom Hanks is really great in it, and he is. His acting in this movie is really great. He completely falls into the character, and you don't see Tom Hanks anymore. You see Forrest Gump, which is no small feat, I think. And there's a couple scenes he has where it's very warm-hearted and kind of leaves you, like, I think the ending kind of leaves you feeling kind of good, because he's proud of his kid, and his kid's going off to school, and his kid is smart, and he's happy. But I don't know, it just, along the way, just like, I completely understand why baby boomers love this movie, because they're like, oh look, this is all the things that happened when we were alive. And that's, I do want to say that the special effects in this movie, especially for the time, were incredible. Like the fact that they put him into all these, instead of like reshooting these famous scenes, they just put him in like he was part of it, was all just really well done. And that's great. So if we're talking about the merits of the film as a craft, I think it's really good. But I just this story, I just can't like it.
Well, you know, I don't disagree at all when about the story not being like a heartwarming story, because I don't think of it that way at all. Like I often I like it, but I don't usually want to watch it. Like sometimes I'll be in the mood, but usually I'm like, oh no, I can't handle watching like his girlfriend destroy herself, and then his friend is killed in Vietnam, and then his other friend has his legs blown off and has to go through this horrible depression and being homeless, and his mother dies, and his girlfriend dies, and like that. These are the plot points of the movie, right? The movie is actually extremely harrowing. The only thing that makes it palatable at all is his perspective and his sort of childish indefatigability. And
the movie's actually very focused on death. Which is like not even just the people he knows. Every time he meets a famous person, the thing that Forrest says in his narration is when that person died. Like he meets Elvis, he doesn't say Elvis becomes a huge successful star. He says Elvis died of taking too many drugs. Like he does the same thing with John Lennon. He does the same thing with both Kennedys. He always seems to mention, when their death. So it's like a very death fixated type of film, which is weird. Like I think that goes with my theory in that Robert Zemeckis hates everyone.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting to me how there's all this death, and then at the end he's back in the same place where he started, and he has a little kid who's basically just like him, except you're led to believe this kid is smart, but that doesn't really matter because the kid is like him in, I think, in personality.
Yeah.
And it's like it's gone full circle. It's like this circle of life concept, except showing the fact that the whole previous generation has to be ground under the wheel for the next turn to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say how ironic it is that Forrest Gump's favorite book is Curious George, when he is the least curious person ever?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that, like, all that stuff was absolutely intentional. Like, there's no way that was not intentional. Like, Zemeckis is too smart of a filmmaker. He's saying something with that. And I guess, like when we had our Fight Club discussion, the thing that frustrates me the most is that that people don't see this, and people say, "Oh, Forrest Gump, that was such a great movie about how great America is," and it's like, no, it hates you. The movie's making fun of you.
Yeah,
it's mean.
That's so. I mean, it's funny. You've actually forced me to think about this movie in an analytical way for the first time, and I agree with a lot of your points. I still don't think that I dislike the movie because of that, though. Like, I'm just like, yeah, wow, this is actually not pro-America. And see, the thing is, I never would have said it was pro-America, because any movie that depicts the horrors of Vietnam is, like, by definition, not pro-America. Because that's like, I mean, I'm even surprised that the conservative establishment stands by this movie, because it's a shibboleth of the conservative movement to, like, say that Vietnam was good in some way.
It's anti-America in all the acceptable ways of, like, even conservatives are okay with saying Vietnam was bad. It's like even conservatives are okay with Nixon and the whole Watergate scandal is bad. So it's like very anti-America in those moments, but then it also just it spends a lot of time showing the Black Panthers and the Students for a Democratic Society as these terrible, wild groups that were nothing but trouble and nothing but a bunch of drug crazy. Like, I know the SDS is, like, publicly like outright said how terrible they thought this movie was for painting them in the light it did. But I just think it does that with everything. So I can see when I look at it, I can see why conservatives would like it. I mean, it's a very pick yourself up by your bootstraps and make something out of your life no matter what type of movie that is so popular in the conservative movement. Like, I guess Forrest technically accomplished the American dream by not trying. So I can see why they like it, but I don't know. I hope I've convinced you. I hope you go back and watch Forrest Gump and you're like, ugh.
Well, now I wish that I had come into this conversation with an elaborate theory for how this movie is actually a tool of the liberal administration. And
it's funny because I think when the movie first came out, I think both liberals and conservatives kind of latched onto it and said, "This is ours." I don't understand how the liberal side of the group sees that, but I think they just gave up after a while and just said, "Okay, you can have this because it's not very good. We don't want this. We don't want this to be representing us."
I don't know. I guess I can think of scenes where, I feel like the Vietnam protesters, not that I was there, but I feel like they're being cast in a positive light and maybe an accurate light. I don't know.
Kind of. So that's another thing is, like, anytime Forrest has something poignant to say or whatever, the movie pulls away from it. So, like, he gives a really inspiring speech on the Washington Mall in D.C., and of course they yank out the cords, so no one can hear what his speech, which is played as a joke, but also it's like anytime he's gonna do or say something really affecting, the movie doesn't let it happen, or doesn't let us see it at least.
Yeah, that's also kind of mean
Yeah.
if you don't. And that's the thing is, I think when I'm watching, every time I've watched the movie, I haven't seen that as like a horrible thing. It's just been like, ha,
Yeah.
that's funny and kind of I don't know. So there's definitely I can see this movie now that we're talking about it in these terms. I can see this movie affecting different people in different ways because like I was reading about Charlie Brown the other day and how like Charlie Brown is so incredibly popular and when I was a kid I never got Charlie Brown. I never thought it was like I just didn't get it. I was like this is where's the joke? And maybe I was too young, I don't know. But now I'm like after reading about it and having it explained to me, the joke is actually just that like life is cruel and then you die. Like the joke is that he can never kick the football ever, no matter how hard he tries, right? Like
Yeah.
and there's a class of people who think this is not only like hilarious but deeply wise, and and to me it's just absolutely maddening because I'm like no he has to kick the football, like he has to keep trying or he has to find some way of doing it, like what's the point of this? I'm so angry.
But I agree with you, and I think Charlie Brown is more overt about it. I think what Forrest Gump does, and what it does successfully, is kind of lull people in with this like story that is meant to like tick off certain emotions with them and make them feel certain ways, while it's very secretly saying this other thing that most people don't even really notice. So it's very, it's like, it's very secretly being mean,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact almost to the point where the fact that like Zemeckis knew that people would react this way and is like enjoying manipulating them, without their like it's like feeding them, like taking their shit and then feeding it back to them without them noticing it.
Right.
And it almost revels in that. And
it does, yeah.
And that's just mean.
I'm thinking of the scene where like the people have followed him across the country on his running trek, and then he just like stops and he's like, "I'm gonna go home now." And the camera actually lingers on the people who are following him, and they're just like staring. And one of them goes like, "Well, what are we supposed to do now?"
Yeah.
And he doesn't even turn around. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't turn around, and it's like, and then it just cuts away. And it's like that's a perfect Charlie Brown moment, if you will, because it's like this person. If you want it, you're drawing my attention to this person for the first time who has his own life story and is looking for some kind of meaning. And he was following this guy because he desperately wanted to connect to something and find some meaning somewhere. And then the guy who he's following is just like, okay, I'm done. And then like offers no explanation and just leaves. And now this guy's left there in the desert with nothing, with even less than he had before. Okay, moving on to the next scene. Like that's the thing is I do kind of find that hilarious and like a you got me.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a mean kind of hilarious. Yeah.
It is, It's like you're stupid. The people following him were dumb because they thought he was doing something important and he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I wrote this down while I was watching it, and I think it was on my phone, which is far away. But like, there's one point when, like he's like, people kept asking me why I was running, and I was like, so I just wanted to run, and like I think that's like an embodiment of like the entire outlook or philosophy of the film is that, it doesn't that stuff doesn't matter, like trying in life, like having greater purpose or meaning behind something is a waste of time, and life will actively punish you for doing that.
Yeah, right. Very nihilistic.
Yeah, but that's not me. That's not me saying it. I'm not a nihilist. I want my movies to have happy endings. I want them to say that life has meaning and like. So they're like, can you imagine? So this is can you imagine like an our generation version of this movie, or like a millennial version? I guess we are millennials, so
We are
technically.
which
So
is
can you imagine
weird.
a millennials version of this movie? How obnoxious it would be, like the cultural events for millennials. Like maybe the reason I don't like this movie is because this is the baby boomers history movie, and they would find our history movie just as obnoxious as I find this one.
Yeah, maybe that's interesting. I don't even know what events I would pick as being
I don't know either.
like 9/11 and all of our horrible Middle East things, and I don't know, a
Would
lot of it would be
Forrest like
focused.
get off the plane at 9/11? Would that be the kind of joke they would do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it were Forrest Gump, then it would be like that would be happening in the background, and he would be completely unaware of it.
Yeah.
And but see that what's interesting about that is that like no one in our generation would laugh at that. I don't think
No.
because
No.
we're all like traumatized by 9/11. Um, at least that's my perspective on it. Whereas I don't know. It's funny because you can make you can you can sort of make jokes about Pearl Harbor now, because the audience that you're really showing things to didn't experience Pearl Harbor, didn't experience like this horrible thing that happened to your country.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 9/11 thing is kind of a tangent, but yeah, it's like I'm sure it would be very different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like there's a scene in the movie where Forrest Gump is there at the University of Alabama on the day that they were trying to desegregate it, and it plays that off as kind of a humorous thing. Like someone asks, Forrest doesn't understand what's going on, and someone tells him that the black people want to come to school with us, and his response is, "They want to come to school with us?" Like he's just so like, and so I mean, it plays off these big important historical moments as kind of a joke. It's even like I forget what his name is. I think it was the governor of Alabama was standing in front of the door preventing the black people from coming in or whatever. And Forrest is just there in the background looking confused. So it's like playing this big, huge moment in history off as satire.
Yeah, but now that you're pointing this out, it's even weirder to me that baby boomers like this because I agree, I think I would be angered if someone took things that I was like in sort of invested in and then made them into jokes. I don't know. I'll have to. I almost want to like talk to my parents and be like, "What is your like? What does this make you feel?" Because it just makes me feel sort of like mild humor. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is fiction. This happened before I was born. So how can I feel anything about it? But if this is part of your life story and they're turning it into a joke, so what does that feel like?
Yeah, yeah. I think if we have any baby boomers listening to this thing, if you want to send us your opinions, I'd love to know
Yeah.
what you guys feel about this movie. But so that's my opinion on Forrest Gump. I feel really bad for Jenny. Poor Jenny. Doing drugs gives you AIDS. Never do drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Having dreams gives you AIDS.
yep. Trying and leaving Alabama leaves
Yeah,
leaves you
you want to
AIDS.
get out of Alabama and be a musician? Well, you're gonna get AIDS.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's how the world works.
Ah, Forrest Gump. Okay, well, I hope I at least let you and the people listening in on a different way of looking at this movie because I want everyone to think of the movie in this way. And I don't want I wouldn't want you to go back and rewatch it. I don't want anyone to have to rewatch this movie. Like as well made as it is, I think it's long and the story like part of the thing with Forrest is he's not really active in his life and things just happen to him. So the movie really has no narrative propulsion in that. It's just, okay, now this happens, now this happens. He graduates college and then someone hands him a pamphlet as he's walking off stage. So he joins the army and like, so there's nothing to propel you from scene to scene. It's just, this is going to happen and then this is going to happen.
Yeah, no,
so it makes for a tough rewatch. I texted you during it And I was like, this thing is so long.
Yeah. Even as someone who enjoys it, I've had the problem of just becoming bored and wandering out of the room because it's slow. It's slow and it's long and it's disjointed. Yeah, definitely. That's true. That's all true.
Sweet. So I was right. Forrest Gump sucks.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess.
Yes, I win.
Guess, yeah. Now I have to find something that you like to figure out how to make you not like it anymore.
That's impossible. No, I mean I don't fault anyone for liking this movie. I think, like we said, I think Zemeckis is very successful at what he does in that kind of manipulation. So I think the people that like it are experiencing exactly what he wanted them to. But you're being manipulated, people. I just want the people to know that.
Well, thank you for removing the wool from my eyes.
You're welcome. All right. So before we end for this week, let's do some quick recommendations. Matt, you had something you wanted to kind of recommend?
Yeah. So this is my first anti-recommendation for a movie that you should not ever see. It's called The Box, starring Jason Marsden and I already forgot her name again.
Cameron Diaz.
And it's just the worst movie ever. It starts out with a little bit of promise, with a kind of a cool premise that there's this box that this couple, they're told, if you push the button on this box, then you'll get $1 million, but someone else that you don't know will die, or you could just not push the box and nothing will happen. And that's an interesting premise, except that's just the premise for like the first 20 minutes, and then it turns into like a bad Philip K. Dick ripoff, where everything becomes disjointed and weird plot elements that have no place in a simple sort of psychological study story come into play, and completely goes off the rails.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's really that, like, we use that word hyperbolically a lot, but it's sort of insane in the sense of, like, I mean, Philip K. Dick was, like, he had schizophrenia, and you can see that in Philip K. Dick's writings, and even so, Philip K. Dick's writings make more sense than this movie.
Yeah, and I like sci-fi stuff, but this sci-fi stuff in here is just nonsense, and it doesn't tie to any kind of thematic message. Like,
yeah,
like you would figure with a movie with a premise as simple as, would you kill someone for money? There would be a very strong thematic through line throughout the entire thing. And there's just not. I have no idea what this movie's actually trying to say.
Yeah. Correct. Yes, I have no idea what. I don't even know if you're supposed to push the button on the box. Like, is the movie saying you're supposed to? I mean, I don't think it is, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's.
There's a Funny or Die video that is a satire of this. That's really hilarious. That I want you to watch now that you've seen this.
Oh, that sounds good. I will do.
It mostly makes fun of just the box concept, not the crazy sci-fi stuff, but it's good. Trust me.
All right. Well, Scott, what did you want to recommend?
I wanted to recommend the best show on television right now, which is FX's The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story by Ryan Murphy. I think it's the same guy that did American Horror Story. So this is a kind of a dramatization of the O.J. Simpson trial. It's really good. It's like doing very smart things, and that it's like playing off of the whole tabloid nature of the case itself and how, like, it was sensational news, and it's playing off of that, but it's doing it in, like, really intelligent ways that, like, very much relate to our current race issue problems. And it's just so smart. The guy who plays Johnny Cochran is incredible. One of the best performances I've seen on TV. The John Travolta is playing Bob Shapiro, and he's hilarious. I don't think his performance is very good, but it's always very interesting to watch him whenever he's like in the background of a scene, because he's always doing really strange things.
Okay.
It's like the OJ trial was something like I vaguely remember. I was like, I think in 5th grade when the verdict came down, and I actually remember we were at recess and some girl had a radio where they were reading the verdict out. So it was that big for 5th graders.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
How did the other children react?
When the verdict came down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them were happy.
Yeah. I was talking about this with my wife, and we both reported that everyone around us was very happy with the verdict.
Yeah.
Which made us very confused.
I think that just says the work that Johnny Cochran did and how good of a lawyer he was.
Yeah, I guess.
That he completely got the entire world on OJ's side. And it's great. It's great in showing all that. It shows that like the performances like in the courtroom stuff, that's all really great, but it deals with the outside the courtroom stuff as well. Like last night's episode was about Marcia, the prosecutor's attorney, who went through a bunch of stuff during the trial, like with the tabloids making fun of her look and her haircut, and like they basically were super cruel to her. And that episode went through all of what she had to deal with, and it's so good. Like it's production wise, performances, the writing is super solid. Like it's the most engrossing hour of television I experience every week. I love it. I absolutely love it.
What channel or whatever is this on?
It's on FX.
Okay.
And it's Tuesday at 8 or 9. That's Central though. I don't know.
Okay.
It's really good. Everyone should watch it. And it's cool. It's cool too because I only have a very kind of pop culture based memory of the actual trial itself and what actually went down. Like everyone remembers the glove part.
Yeah.
But I don't like all the details of the trial is something I never really knew in a lot of detail. So
right. Yeah, I don't think we knew enough about the justice system to even comprehend.
Yeah, so it's both you're learning stuff, and obviously they're taking dramatic liberties with a lot of stuff, but I think it's true to the spirit of what was going on at the time. So it's great.
Cool. All right.
And that is it for us today. So a little bit of a shorter one for us, especially lately. We've been running long. But I think that was good, Matt. Thanks for listening to me rant about Forrest Gump for an hour.
Oh well, thanks for enlightening me.
Yeah, I'm very glad that everyone agrees with me now, which I'm just gonna assume is the truth.
Yeah, I think we can assume that, and if people don't, then they'll just have to post a comment to express their unhappiness.
Yeah, tell me why I'm wrong, please.
Yeah.
So next week on the podcast, I don't know if you remember this, Matt, but way back 24 episodes ago, our guest Michael brought up anime on the podcast, and I got mad at him for it.
Mm-hmm.
So next week, you guys made me watch some anime, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really interesting because I do not like anime, and you guys in general do. Not everything, but...
Well, I honestly think Michael likes a large variety of it. I pretty much...
Just like
this
that
one. I told you to watch.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But I think that's good because that allows me to be someone to calm both of you down when you start screaming at each other. So...
And I think it's really this allowed me. I hadn't watched it in so long that like I knew I didn't like it, but I could never really put my finger on why. And I think this experience really allowed me to develop my feelings about why exactly I don't like this form of storytelling. So I think it's gonna be a really interesting one. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah.
So that'll be next week. If you are curious about anime or just love anime and want to see me talk about how much I don't like it, tune in next week. Matt, the internet, where are you on it?
Twitter at MORIDINAMAEL, which is also written below.
It's funny we say below when that's not.
Yeah,
it's a real nebulous term.
Podcast. I don't know. I picked it up from elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I've actually been trying to tweet more this week.
I noticed that
on purpose. Yeah, well, I found this one. I found this one guy. I think his Twitter is at Stephen Cass, Kaas. And all of his tweets are like these perfect little haikus of humor. They're not literally haikus, but they're all like great. They're like every single one of them is great. I was like, wow, this makes me want to consider this more as like an art form that I can become good at, rather than just like a crappy social media platform. So anyway,
that's great. My tweets are all great too. So
yes, they
by
are.
the way.
Well, all of our tweets collectively are great.
That's true. I am at Scott Daly 85. That's DALY. Our website, Twitter, is at Daily Planet Films, and all of our writing can be found at www.dailyplanetfilms.com. We had, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Matt, you posted your reactions to Game of Thrones. I still haven't posted Melissa's book article, but that's going to be coming down the pipe. We got a lot of stuff coming, so it's exciting.
Yeah. All right.
And we will see you all next week.
Podcast is over. It's done. We hope you all had some fun. Go back to your work or your school. Maybe the gym. Hey, that's cool. Regardless, just go away. But please come back next Friday. There'll be a brand